I was about 6 years old when I realized who my father was. I started to really respect my father for what he had done. And I wanted to be just like him.
May 29th, 1953. 32 years of human struggle to reach the highest point on Earth is finally over. New Zealander Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing Norgay return from the summit of Everest triumphant. But they soon find out that reaching the summit is just the beginning.
After the success of the climb, people would have hoped that it's a great moment in history. You know, everyone should be happy. But I don't think it happened that way.
Two men from humble origins could never have imagined what impact their achievement would have on the world, themselves, and later, their sons.
It's very innocent. My father came here to climb a mountain, and I think it was at that time that they started to realize this wasn't just any mountain.
Now, 50 years later, the sons of the men who first climbed Everest return to confront the truth behind the icon. What's the real story on Everest?
This really is a really awful place.
At any moment, you think the whole bottom is going to fall out, and if you're holding onto a rope, you'll be okay. Maybe.
No one has carried more of that risk than the Sherpa people. What price have they paid in 50 years of climbing?
I wouldn't encourage my son to climb because this is a very dangerous job. You can have 100 reasons to die up here.
Hey, Pete, you live?
Over 1,200 people have climbed it. 175 have died trying. Yet the tug of Everest is as seductive as ever.
When Dad and Tenzing were up there was no one else on the summit pyramid at all. Now today, there's over 100 people.
And if things do go wrong, you're gonna see some people killed.
Tell people to drop down. You guys gotta stagger your people.
Have 50 years of climbing tarnished an icon and changed what it means to survive Everest?
I don't think we're gonna get up at this time, Dad.
In their search for answers, while battling the extremes, these sons will have to face the truth about the mountain, their fathers, and themselves.
I must admit, when I called out to you, I was pretty scared.
Dad? Can you hear us? Dad?
Five and a half miles above sea level. It was once exploration's last great challenge. The object of a race to place a single nation's flag on what was known as the Third Pole. Today, the sons of Everest have returned to reach the summit again and learn how 50 years of climbing to the top of the world has changed a mountain and her people. Sherpa Tenzing Norgay's son, Jomling, sees the expedition as an opportunity to get closer to the true story of what happened to his father before and after Everest.
My father did not want us to climb. He did not want us to be Sherpas on the mountain, to risk our lives. He said he had done this so that we wouldn't have to.
Joining Jomling is Sir Edmund Hillary's son, Peter.
When my father and Tenzing climbed Everest in '53, it was a remarkable achievement for humankind. They really showed what people can do, and I'm incredibly proud of Dad for that.
They've both grown up in this valley, the home of the Sherpas, and have each climbed Everest once. The expedition will be led by Pete Athens, who has climbed Everest 6 times, more than anyone who isn't a Sherpa.
This will be my 16th expedition to Everest, and it's a bit of a surprise even to me that I would have come here so many times.
For 25 years, Pete Athens has been coming here, climbing with the Sherpas. He speaks their language and is also a Buddhist. But this time is different. This will be Pete's last expedition on Everest. He and the team will trek 35 miles and 9 days up to base camp at the foot of the mountain. Some historians compare the conquest of Everest with space exploration. Yet it took longer to get a climber to the roof of the world than to put a man on the moon. The quest to climb Everest started in 1921 in Darjeeling, India. From here, over the course of 20 years, the British launched 6 unsuccessful expeditions to the north side of Everest. Supporting every effort were the Sherpas, known for their strength at altitude. By the 1950s, the Swiss had joined the British in a race to put the first man on the summit. Both nations knew that to be successful, they needed the greatest Sherpa climber of the day, Tenzing Norgay. As Sirdar, or Sherpa leader, Tenzing acted as the conduit between his Sherpa climbing team and the foreigners. This year, on his way to Everest, Tenzing Norgay's son Jomling is seeking out the last surviving Sherpas who worked on the early expeditions with his father.
I shared a tent with your father in 1953. Before the expedition, we didn't have much to do. At home, I collected wood. That's all.
Tenzing worked for my family as a young man. Early on, he became bored with village life, so he went to Darjeeling, where there were better opportunities for making money.
Anyone who wanted work had to stand in line in Darjeeling, whether they wanted to be a climber or a porter. They would examine each Sherpa to see if they had any diseases or physical problems. If someone had an illness, they would hire the next guy.
Tenzing hired porters to carry 10 tons of food and equipment to the mountain. They were not all Sherpa. Some were Tamang or Rai, other hill tribes of Nepal.
In 1953, there were close to 1,000 porters, so many we couldn't all travel at once. We had 3 groups of 300 or so.
They carried loads into the thin air, both men and women, toward the base of Everest. Most wore clothes too thin to ward off cold and frostbite, and many made the 175-mile trip barefoot.